Josh?
Every one of those steps.
Guys, thank you, for the teamwork. Okay.
Every one of those steps.
Guys, thank you, for the teamwork. Okay.
Every one of those steps. Yeah, dispute that.
Guys, thank you, for the teamwork. Okay. I know you.
All right, welcome everybody. Redevelopment Advisory Board September meeting. We'll go ahead and start with roll call. Oh,
Ashley Morey,
present.
Zachary Fisher here. John Hanna here. Jeremy Bye. Tom Crozier excused. Douglas Meltzer. Samantha Ross. Sean here. David Wrightson here.
All right, so starting with the agenda, we can approval of the agenda. Question. So. And approval of the.
Just vote, so any discussion?
Oh, any discussion, questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Approval of the August meeting minutes. Motion. Yes. Thank you, Doug.
So,
Any other discussion? To public comment.
let's see, I didn't receive it.
And no action items. Okay. So it looks like, Polk County update. From. Wow.
Commissioner meetings.
Welcome.
First off, thanks all for serving this thing. So 3 terms. And the people we had. And as it says, it's get to understand what's happening on the backside. So I'm careful to become a commissioner. Thanks for having me today. I just want to cover a couple of things. And there's so much going on right now. One of the biggest challenges we have right now, we have a transportation package in the Senate. Voting on today starts at 10 o'clock, unless you can watch it. You can vote this county at the same time. And that's gonna pass. So there's also a group already, those of you that don't want to pay any taxes, it's gonna get this forced onto the ballot. So let me, for the ballot next year, we'll have this on the ballot, so our voices can hear huge taxes. But on a local level, more exciting. One of the biggest things we got, back in 2019, they appointed 2020 of COVID, the governor sent out that was online. In Polk County, in rural Oregon, less than half of the people living outside city limits had broadband of any. Third of those had broadband that were so efficient, you push the button like our house. Then push the button, get a cup of coffee, come back, your page be downloaded. You can read and push a button. Okay, that's all. So for me to Zoom, I had to go to my office at the house and be Zooming. It's not possible. With the COVID money, we need to start investing. We started the contributing back in 2016 before I was even there. Our IS department, Commissioner Polk, Chuck Conley were pushing forward. So when that happened, we had all these plans in place. We were all providers. With that COVID money, we teamed up and funded a lot of their expansions in those regions all over Polk County. So today, we now have over 94% of people have broadband available. There are certain holes that we'll never get to in some of these canyons. But now, if our students are required to do their homework at home, they're not sitting downtown next to the library trying to get them to do homework. If mom's got what she wants to run there. Or even as far as outside the city, now they can reach the world or what their business is. It's been a huge upgrade. Our last one is happening right now. That's in West Salem Hills. Your Hills, there's a lot of challenging areas. We put in 125,000. West Salem area. We teamed up 50-50 with Redevelopment. So now from the river south, north of the county, all of that is showing about 90% covered. They came up with some really genius ideas. This county, you can't see it, but this house can, and put a repeater on this house. So it got in whole was things to that house and the things to that. As long as that guy puts his computer on, this guy told just use his computer. But if that guy leaves when he turns his computer off, it's dark. So those are some of the challenges we're still working through. New technology is one of them is to bypass it. So we just put a receiver on their house. It will let us to a place. Which is nice. You don't know. Cans from December in my island. So I'm canceling surgery, then removed part of my hearing what's my level. So right now I have a temporary injection that gives me this voice. But I can't fix it permanently until March of next year. And I'll be able to talk loudly and clearly, but yelling is done. So I'm the good part now. Which is great. So that's exciting things up there. So now all voice over there. Majority. Which really counting to about 90%. 97%. Some really exciting things here at UNIS. You all know that I've been working on Highway 2251 project since 2019. We got off the show. ODOT has been phenomenal to work with. We agree. Relationships, myself and staff sit in their planning meetings with their staff so we can share ideas. So it's align what we're discussing. So it's kind of a time frame. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges, it starts out into golf course, comes all the way back to Willis Ferry Road. That's $280 million project. We're not going to get $280 million from any federal state. So it's going to be just like the Denny pipelines. You do a little section, wait 5 years, you're done the section. Austin McQuaid is a blanket, again, great idea. Let's break it down into projects. You can do a project at a time. But both of them 8 projects. And then ODOT staff done. Why are you doing the time? You're going to be doing a project. So we're a federal highway construction. They've approved us now of doing individual projects. So that first project is going to build the overpass over 22, the Highway 51. So if you're heading west, if you get past the Chevron station, you go on a ramp, pass on a 51, straight into Independence. We've eliminated all left turns right now. Right there at the intersection is the safety precaution. Again, I want to raise all that up. We got that done in 6 months. I've never seen no done to anything in 6 months. We've had 2 projects get done. But I really think it's just the fact that we're going to sit in those meetings. We can talk to their staff to understand it's like to live here. So it's been amazing. So right now, an environmental assessment study is being done for the overpass project. And if that's done, it will take about a year, which again is very fast because it condensed into the project. Once that's done, then I can start going. I've already got, I got everybody from here. I'm told I'm telling you, dog with bone. All the year from me is 22 and 51. But you guys all see the accents. The lives we lost out there. That's been my top priority was to see one. So I'm hoping a year from now, we'll have some money in place. There's still money right away. I'd love to see, realistically, is 5 to 6 years to splitting the bridges being built. So it takes time, it's frustrating, but things are moving forward. It's just exciting. The 99 W platform, it's done. Through it. And some farmers tell me that they have a rope in the back of their truck tied in, scared to use on the end. If it doesn't work, you can throw me on the end. They just. I did not choose roundabout. I in about 2016, I said it would come. That's a great quote. Fighting to block the roundabout, get rid of it, put lighting. But ODOT said, you can take roundabout. So I got appointed in 2019. A 21-year-old girl was killed. After I got appointed in that. After I was at Salem, W. And D-cell lady pulled over. She said, it's turning right. I can go. So she pulled out to go left and then north. The car on the other side of that cell. T-bone her killed. So we literally got on staff. Said what we have to do. And they say, I have to run boats. I like running boats. That means we're not killing the kids, families. Let's pull around. So that was 2019. It took that long to get that built. January, Highway 22 in Kingsville, up on the hill here for the coast, and the big white building to the right, the nurse package shed. That intersection around about getting it started. Supposed to be in February or March. It's planned to start sometime around 1st of May. They'll start construction. This can be some very uncomfortable detours on the job because they don't have the side like they did that you're doing club. So the east and westbound traffic will be fine. It's just except for about a few weeks late in the project and have a detour. But if you're going through that area, you gotta take over to around 99 and better. So if you move north, Lincoln store to the left, Ariel, that flashing light, that's getting turn lanes built this next spring. Because when you come down that hill, heading south, probably there's 2 or 3 cars there. They've had about 6 fatalities at that intersection. Since I've been, we have ODOT adding turn lanes will get you out of traffic. So north and south will have free flow. That goes to bid also January, February. And that's gonna be done next year. That's about a 8-month project. So it's gonna have about 4 weeks of detour. So you're not gonna go federal hill, you have to of course side of the hill. But those are all exciting things. Took a lot of time to get them to this position where they're actually becoming real. It's exciting. I actually feel like I've done something now. Although one thing is done. Nonetheless, it's just it's fun seeing all of this stuff. And the people I've got to work with, the team they have at Polk County on staff, responsible. You know, the ones that really deserve all the credit. I'm just kind of the guy with the cat pride. Keep it. I just like fun. Coming up here in my Salem, I've heard the Marine Drive starting to be taught about. So in the first 2000, our first one. So I think the first ones. I had called the neighbor at that time. In that bond, Marine Drive was to be the first phase. That started the courthouse, went around the courthouse and ended just about where Fifth Street was into the first phase of Marine Drive. So the history of Marine Drive, back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, when Wallace Road was designed to go 4 lanes, all that made a statement. If we don't find another north-south route, Wallace Road's gonna be 6 lanes by 2030. And you can see the traffic leads right now. Through the backs of it, and anytime random. And jobs are being created in the I used to be able to pull out on that anytime, you know, sitting there for a minute or two. It's still not as bad as Portland. A minute or two, we're gonna see. Marine Drive is part of that first winter. Instead of building it, lots of right away. So this new lawn, Marine Drive is also included in this bond. Now, since the time that you first designed Marine Drive was supposed to be an arterial road. So it looked like Orchard Heights going up the new section. That's the size road that Marine Drive would be. It would have a 15-foot bicycle district pathway on the river side of it, full lane. So if you're coming down the hills, you jump on the pathway. You know, across any roads. It's a great design. That was downgraded by a couple of residents in the city council. Probably, I would say, 8 years ago, to a street the size of Fifth Street. And if you want to know Fifth Street, it's 24 feet wide. It's very good. The cars parked there, or ambulance and fire trucks can't get down. So, you know, they're talking about when we're going. When they had me come in for, asked me to endorse it during the bond, I said, well, I was part of it. We built it was originally designed. So if you're coming out of downtown and you're heading north, instead of going on the Wallace Road, right there for Salem 10 on you, you talk about where the road tracks are, turn left there, and you jump on Main Drive. You come around on Main Drive, you're gonna be a stop sign, light, and courthouse. And you'll go all the way to River Bend Road, back on all this out of town. It's just like the downtown traffic transportation plan out here. Can you imagine downtown without Front Street? If you have no business downtown, you jump on Front Street, you pop right to it, and either way. This Front Street works just like a Marine Drive would be for West Salem. So if there's a wreck on West Salem, downtown Salem does not be a parking lot, which it does today. How you went down there, jump on Marine Drive, you still get through. And that's my whole focus. How do we eliminate bottlenecks and congestion? Gotta find alternative routes for traffic. I love Eugene. You can pop around that place so fast. And we are way behind the eight ball to rural pass fares for people passing through town. We ran everything to downtown. This is the most congested. So, and also, it's one of the most dangerous for pedestrians in your city. Get the automobiles out of here, you know, slowly. Bicycle, pedestrian, bus routes, all of them have more to move safely across the street. So as this topic comes up, you all live in Salem. Tories go, it's a bad thing. You bury, you take a car. I don't want to go to. But when you believe in something, you have to fight for it. And you guys are the Assembly Advisory. Help you move to your own life. Find out what was studied, what is studied, and voice your concerns and your thoughts. Structure. One thing I've always heard is Marine Drive will diminish the value of Osprey Park. If you go down there, there's a bench that goes right behind the courthouse, and all along above the soccer fields, above the baseball. That was put in when that was constructed for Marine Drive. So it's all the infrastructure and land is there, city of land. And when we get around Fifth Street, and then it comes in again. That's where I get a place my concerns.
Just trying to which one it's I don't know I'm trying.
So if you are living Ross, where
Yeah, sure. I was struggling to find Fifth Street.
that's
So- This second one, sure.
backside of Jiffy Loop, there's a road that comes home. And it's Fifth Street, it goes in between. The turning and all that to. And the apartments.
Oh, okay, so
So it's the alleyway line.
It's almost down there.
Could you go to Zoom, whatever you watch on YouTube?
You know,
So can you explain to me southbound Wallace Lane, how that is?
yes, it would intersect where Second Street ties in.
So some of what he's referring to, this all goes back to, what was it, 2016 with the bridge? So we're looking at Second Street, it would connect through Wallace and wrap around to what would have been the southern leg of this Green Drive, kind of the front street, I think. So it's basically the Second Street through here. So cut it through, and as Lyle's referring to it, and come back around here. So to be this alternative route to Wallace Road
So this is the lower section.
through here.
Now, this lower section is looked at as not part of the bond, only the north section. So the north section from Line Creek Road north, it runs behind all the apartment buildings being built up on Wallace Road. So all those apartments don't have to go in Wallace to go downtown. They can drop onto Marine Drive and come out right at the courthouse, which is the mill, post office, grocery store,
Right here.
all those amenities.
So these, yeah, so this section got tied up by residents and people tied to the park that were in opposition. So we're looking at, so the new Marine Drive section to the north is Fifth to, but I still.
Yeah, so. Can you zoom that in at all?
There's some stuff right on YouTube.
So Fifth
Yeah.
is this road right here. This is Fifth Street. So you have all the senior apartments and housing here. And
Sorry.
there we go.
Just to zoom.
And here's the apartments.
Just
Here's
take
the
it loud, I'm
corner.
gonna move to Zoom and get off.
Perfect. So Fifth Street, this is Ross, this is the MEC facility, Jiffy Loop right here. Here's Fifth Street. So, in the DEI branding in the city, all these projects have to be weighed to balance. The impact, low income, minority. All of that, both sides of Fifth Street is section 80 county. We're gonna run all this traffic right through here. Seniors with walkers. There's no place for kids to play in the apartments, by the time they're playing in the street.
how much of cottage life? What is it? Okay, I see.
This will really bring that to your attention, so. if You guys look at this and this comes into play. You're sharing your thoughts and concerns. We are. Could be able to move this back. Maybe it doesn't need to be a full arterial. It needs to be more than a neighborhood street. Just for safety. One of those fire trucks, access. If you go up to some of these apartment buildings, there's sections they put in. And cars park on it, be killed on the. And that's sections of Main Drive. That's challenging. So, there's still alternatives to possible approval. You know, you guys love me.
Yeah.
So, it does look pretty good.
Way.
Then we're here back then. So and also I just, those are kind of the topics I really want to cover, there's a ton going on. Yeah. That's sounds good. I want to give you a chance for questions. Nobody's got any questions?
The overpass, I might have missed it, the Highway 22 project, overpass into 51 for the gas station. And then goes to the Independence, when's that home to be starting?
Well, that's what you say, roughly 5 to 6 years. Start moving to it. But we have to fund,
Oh, gotcha.
that's gonna be an $80 million project for the overpass. When you fly over that distance, it's expensive.
Gotcha.
So that's gonna be my biggest challenge, but ODOT's one thing we want to have. But so far I've got this funding twice, they say, 2 working. So Kurt Schrader in office, neither is great. Henry Saloons, he's interested in this project. Her staff just waited. And I told them that do not send me out with a pager unless we can accept funds. They didn't think I did it. AJ with City of Salem. So, he was on Schrader's team. He went on all of these. One of the lighthouse here in Salem. For 3 days, going door to door, talking to all the senators and representatives. And we got about a third of
That's funny.
state capital. And I say that,
It's a perfect description.
I heard that the other day, I just thought, wow, this is so crazy. I know how frustrated everybody is. On county levels, just for many corrections, right now, the focus is not lock people in jail. So anti-incarceration, let's find alternative, let's rehabilitate them on the streets through community correction. 2002, our community corrections getting funded at $12 a day per parolee. That was in 2002. Today, getting $15. So if we had a 3% increase every year, 2002 to today, $22 per parolee at a 3% increase. And this is something that we have to provide, mandated by the state. But so this county's fund, we're backfilling this required that. So I know everybody's frustrated with what's going on there, but I don't notice. I didn't even got a test plan 2 bills that directly affected our county. That was signed up and registered, but they haven't done it. So it's so frustrating. And this is, Polk County's not unique. Every county in the state's doing this. They just keep getting more and more. Our county assessor who collects our taxes for all of the entities inside our counties, cities, special districts, so we disperse that money. By education, we do that job very well. We have 11 people in the office, we should have 20. We backfill that because the state doesn't. So we are allowed to keep 0.3%. So when funding passes through the state, they pull 30% off the top on all of the funding. So that's the imbalance between state and county. So that's when my hair is turning whiter and whiter than it's possible. Just get figured out people.
So just the 30% that gets allocated to
That is for management. So administration.
administration.
So we are allowed to keep 0.3%. They keep 30. Like I said, all we want to do is we can keep 10%, even 5% of that money. We could probably make it work and not be a burden on the county taxpayer. The county taxpayers will pay, but then the state. Taxes, so we keep. Our general fund is 33. We collect about 116. This is all. Dispersed out. It's just some of the challenges. I can go water owners. But it doesn't matter. What I want you guys to do is talk to them. When you're involved, what can you do to stay within those boundaries? Good voice around to make it what you're doing successful. And when you do run those roadblocks or hang ups in unison, you do a great job. Because your planning is not simply throwing down plans. You have to get all of these entities to sign off on. Then you get a law halfway through the change everything you're doing. Now you have to go back and fix everything you did to get back to this point. So it takes one entity to throw a flag and you're right back to where one is.
You're describing the third person.
I didn't want to mention that. I was trying. Like, not just the challenge to come. I tell you the biggest thing, when you're mad at government, which government you're mad at? What names you want to say? Because we get blamed for what happens in the capital. Or what happens in the county, it seems like you get somebody in the city. And it calls all the time because the lack of parking now around Apartment buildings, infrastructure. And you wiped out my neighborhood, I didn't do that. I sent them to their city office. I can't do anything inside city limits, anytime. Okay, I don't want to infringe on what the city does. Because that's their job, this is their area. It's like what goes back, we work together in a lot of situations, and we want to maintain that person and respect. But now, like, anybody got any questions, I just start talking.
Well, this question is more towards Marion County versus Old, but I'm speaking of the Markham that have some areas should be in that. It's still a construction and it's way over budget. From what I understand. Okay. The capital building,
Oh, yeah.
is that their engineering, or is that the subcontractor?
It's a combination of everything, that is a seismic. Actually repair for the building, so the capital stays there. They're doing lots of underground shaker work. So it's just when you have to undermine the entire building, that's hold it up, build the foundation underneath it, set it back down. It's made out of stone. You can imagine how tedious that work is.
The dome is made out of hollow clay tile. It's worse than a shell. Could have built that building twice. Grand. That's something they should have stored.
Well, Abernathy Bridge, 205.
Yes.
It was gonna be a $200 million project. It's right now $825 million. They will not.
That's on 205, right?
So our bridge. Stand on 200 million for space. And it stops once the tower that's on the west side on the program. From that tower, it will be reconstructed. On the west, that is all. Liquefiable ground, so it's just all silt with years of the river. There's nothing solid. So they have to be engineered. So I spent 200 million on the first 2/3 of it, and that's by the way, that's show water. Fresh water is going to be upgraded. That's that bridge. So now West Salem hopefully will have water. Big one hits. But they have to figure out a way to engineer west side. And while they do that, we should take a look at how what's green, all that ties in. During this bridge, there's gonna be times with out to 22, very terrible. Because Rosewood. So get ready. I've already got that call best. But it's gonna be for coming across the bridge. It's gonna be pretty hard. A while. You have to learn to leave over years. You have to stagger their times. Can't all come in 7:10. To be working 7:30 or vice versa. It's something they have to do. When another bridge easier, cheaper. Yeah. But this bridge was put in the 2017. Law that passed. Monday. Oh. So it's one of those things. It's on the state level. And you just keep pushing and searching ideas. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't.
Didn't see who was smart.
And I tell you, I talk about frustrations and things. But there was a lot of good people working really hard, trying to do the right thing. It's just the bureaucracy of somebody messing up and time. So you put safeguards in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank God. You have to have in certain areas, some of climate change or climate driven projects. They 20-foot culvert to drive into a driveway. Whether it's near a catch basin water or big. Or I might have a creek that runs by and backs up for a month or two in the spring. And then the creek's completely dry by the end of July. But if the water backs up into that creek, it's something that's deep. Fish passage. So instead of having a $1,000, $4,000 repair, it's now 200,000 because you have to put a box of coal over it and have a natural basin lot. Or a concave culvert, something with a flat lot, so the fish can go in. Because if water's backed up, fish can go in there, he's got to get back through. And the water recedes. Now he's been doing it for hundreds of years, almost where culverts were put in early 1920s, 30s, that were seeing now. They're 30 years old, they're starting to collapse. We've had 3 that we've gone back because there was that this deep fish passage. So we can't change it now because we don't have $200,000. We've got about 35 culverts that on the list to get changed out. Everybody is broken. Very good. Yale County, they have over 2,500 culverts. And there's about 1,500 repaired, disrepaired.
But that's federal.
Well, state and federal. State TA is more stringent than federal. If they go back to federal, state.
Yeah.
It's, they get it from both sides, especially when these. It just, but that goes back to why it's on that road. So that is, it's a population. We need to get back to common sense. Common sense, because I believe in protecting the climate also. We don't need to go over and beyond. Because for me, a fish passage is something running hardly what was here. A fish is gonna swim up the river, he's gonna come down. Just maintain that, protect it. But for a farmer's pond, boom, spring, water's backed up until he starts watering and it recedes down. That's not a fish passage. It's a culvert or whatever it might be. So it is. Those kind of things is what frustrates you. Okay. I'm still very optimistic. My last notice will work. Yes, you get that done with a negative attitude. You can't let negativity. As much as the people you do with every once in a while. You try to get to that point. I learned a lesson 12 years ago. Nothing makes the argument. So, the person got hired, the store manager told me, first day of the shore, I grabbed my picture card. And with one arm, picked me up. And he says, I'm punching in the face. The day lost the day, he's just sitting down, what's your problem? He starts going out the table up to the front door, said, let me help you out. I had to leave. And I'm just going, oh crap, I didn't do anything. And David said, you know, the biggest thing I learned a long time ago, when a guy acts like that, just picture the 4-year-old. I want to take a tantrum. He put a diaper on and stood in the corner. It's so much easier to smile now, because you just remember those. Okay. But most people are concerned because they don't have control. All they have. That's usually the people that only screaming are the ones that didn't spend the time to find out what the real issue is. The problem. If you find out, invest your time. What the problem is, we don't resolve it. It gives you a lot better idea of those that are hired. Sitting in the situation, trying to fix it. There's no perfect answer. I mean, it might be understands all of them, but she can't give them because some scenario. It's just like a little bit of wisdom. Just remember, when you hear something, don't react. Find out the facts, and then share your thoughts. Teach your neighbors and friends. Go to one meeting. You guys are all here. You're doing it. Some of your most local neighbors never leave their house because tonight it's not to start. So. But that's what we face, reality. You have two vacancies, trying to find two people. I think that'd be so simple. Is what you're doing, all that matters. I know it seems like it's a stretch, but the basic thoughts shared here, they go to staff and the places, it's all considered. It's important. So, which is very needed, and you have to share it, but give you the ability to talk. All right,
Well, so
I have a meeting at 8:00 in Dallas. I don't have it hard 8:25. Again, you guys ain't be questions. It's in just listen here.
Yeah, yeah. So,
By the way, staff asked me if I'll take my signs up and do one more term. I'm done January 6th, 2020. That's what I want to say. For this last term. And they had a bunch of people at the house. So understand the situation. Hang your signs up in case you change your mind. One more term. You really know I want to go in there. She's like, she was at BMP's house. So she's not blind. And she has her own concerns and thoughts. She shared. She looked at Austin McWiggins, a blind breaker, and said, Austin, I'm renting a shredder and I'm running that thing. That answer, so 10 years is enough. But I tell you, if you ever consider it, you gotta sit down, cup of coffee, tell you the life, sure. Requirements, thoughts. I mean, it's a very important, frustrating, exciting position. You're in the stuff that you can't discuss, but yet at the same time, some people really discuss it with you loud. But like I said, all of that's part of the job. You won't see it here, but the job's real pretty. And I never thought I'd be commissioner. I'm a tired guy. I'm retired still for 30 years. For the one thing Kevin asked me to do this, I started laughing. And I'm so glad they did. That's the people you work with. All right, thank you guys. Thank you all for serving and doing what you're doing. See you. See you for.
so.
Well, welcome in it.
Everyone knows Ms. Riddle. She's a staff planner, long range planning manager. at Our department. I'm in the urban division of community planning. It's the planning side. So thank you for taking the time.
So Tori asked me to come talk a little bit about our zoning code work, very exciting. And it's really focused on housing, so I thought I would kind of touch on that. And then I heard there's interest around talking about continued use kind of provisions, which we are gonna also work on. We haven't started, so I can take feedback on that and just give kind of an overview of other projects. I was thinking maybe since a lot of the previous discussion was about transportation, make a quick update on kind of locally our transportation planning, if that's okay before I go into the code. So we have been working for a while on the scope of our local transportation system plan with ODOT, because we're hoping to kick that project off end of year, early next year. And that's really a complete update of the transportation system plan, goals, policies, projects. It's gonna be a new type of project this year because it is very much mandated by new rules that were adopted in the state, the climate friendly and equitable communities rule back in 2022. So there are new requirements, for example, for any project that would expand capacity, we have to do additional analysis. We have to have a financially constrained project list, which we haven't had before, so
It's the webpage, right?
it's gonna be Salem in motion, yes, so it's the update of the TSP is gonna be phase 2. We're currently in phase 1, and that's a regional project where we're working with Marion County, Polk County, we can fix it. So we're working with Marion County, Kaiser, ODOT, DLCD, Chariots on a kind of regional framework for how we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation and promote kind of all different types of transportation. So that's really looking at how can we increase transit, bike, ped, things like that. And so we're hoping to wrap that up this fall. That will have to be approved by the state. So the county, Kaiser, and Marion County, the county, Kaiser, and Salem will each ask our respective boards, so council, to move on the same plan to the state for approval. So we've been working on that for a year plus. And then we can start the local transportation system plan. And that's where we can kind of figure out locally what we want those projects, policies to be. So it's a bit delayed. It's all state mandated, the regional plan is state mandated. So we're eager to start working on the local project. So for housing, I think I talked a little bit about the housing production strategy last time I was here. And that was basically an action plan, a 6-year action plan that laid out the different steps the city could take to promote housing development. So included everything from new URAs to code changes to partnerships to how we buy and dispose of land to kind of the whole gamut of things that are within the city's control. And the city council adopted that in May. So now we're waiting for state approval of that, so it goes through a state process too. But in the meantime, when the council adopted that housing production strategy in May, they really wanted staff to focus first on regulation changes. What can we do in our code to make it easier to build housing, to build more housing, to protect the housing, remove any barriers to housing? And so they pushed that project to the very front and asked us to come back to council by the end of this year with at least a list of ideas. The whole code change, writing the code adoption would be next year. So we've been working with the development community on hearing kind of what are all the issues they've run into as they've been proposing housing development, and what are the changes we could make. And then we're actually meeting with the neighborhood association chairs and land use chairs tomorrow, the community open house next Thursday, and we're going to planning commission. So we're kind of on this really quick time frame to meet the council's deadline, and then we'll have a adoption process. So I wanted to hand out kind of the ideas to date. They're kind of wonky because it's like change this setback, change, easier to cut down certain types of trees in certain situations, kind of removing or lessening regulations on design. So there's kind of a whole variety of things that the development community have asked for. And then the staff has also proposed just based on our experience on reviewing applications. So again, it's a little wonky. It may seem like, oh, this seems really minor. You're gonna, change the setback, or you're gonna change where parking can be located, or change how you could work with the tree. But hopefully they'll kind of all add up so that housing can be built easier and faster. I'm not gonna walk through each one, but some of it has to do with middle housing. We're seeing a lot more middle housing, complex, triplex, fourplex, cottage clusters being built. And so we're trying to make it easier to build middle housing, maybe even increasing the number of units you can build, for example, in a cottage cluster. That's where we have those small kind of cottages around a green. Maybe having more of those, allowing them to be attached instead of just detached. So we have standards for multifamily projects. You'll see, as multifamily projects are basically built in West Salem, we have certain design requirements. One of the things the development community asked for is kind of loosening some of those up to make it more flexible, to meet those design requirements. So I don't know if you guys are interested in specific types of standards. One of the other things is we're looking at ways to promote accessible housing. The state passed a law last legislative session that requires cities to essentially give like a density bonus if you do accessible housing, middle housing, or affordable. But we're looking at how can we incentivize accessible single family. Maybe you can cover more of your lot, build a little bit bigger. So we're trying to incentivize accessible housing. And that's something that's a big need in Salem that generally is voluntarily built. So how can we, instead of mandating it, kind of, so we're looking at that as well. I don't know, any kind of issues around housing and regulation that you've heard of or you're interested? We're seeing more mixed use in inner West Salem. Is that project right on
Yeah, so they've come in for their plans, they just have to get through permitting and. Yeah, there've been some, Second Street, First Street, yeah. there. Oh,
So it's all about kind of speeding up the process, making the regulations more flexible, generally. So if you have ideas or you hear ideas, feel free to just email me, we're still compiling that all. But again, we'll write kind of a package of ideas to cover at the end of the year.
Not ready to build plans.
Ready to
I
build
don't wanna be
plans,
on the
yeah.
spot, but I was on. your
Yes,
page.
that's also on the housing production strategy, yes. So we have one set of ready build plans for ADU, so you can download plans for free. If you wanna build just one very specific ADU essentially. And we're working now with a couple developers and designers to come up with new designs for ADU. So that's, right now it's basically one little box. But we're trying to come up with like maybe a 1 bedroom above a garage, maybe even a duplex, maybe a 2 bedroom. So different designs that the community could download. Or actually, I think what we're gonna do, so we're working with agreements, right? We don't want people to design them and lose money. And so kind of coming up with a set agreement for how much money these plans could be, maybe it's like $500, that's kind of what your team's doing. Where there's a variety, it's gone through the city process already, and that building and safety has said, yes, it meets building code. So it's a faster process and then a cheaper design. And so we're hopefully gonna launch a couple, 2 to 4 designs end of year, early next year. So we're trying to also incentivize people to do infill as well, make it a little easier for folks who aren't really designers, make it a little bit cheaper.
That's where the setbacks come in, because you could have money higher, but then a lot of direction around.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the housing production strategy, we're slowly moving forward. So some of the projects that are in there are things that were already happening, like the new URA, North Waterfront, that's included in there, because it's gonna touch on housing. But that was already in the city's plans. We're trying to also take credit for things that we're already doing. And because again, we're like mandated by the state to say, here are all the things we're gonna do. Some of the other ones is creating a new URA just for middle housing. It's a new idea, and that would be led by urban development. I think that's gonna take a little bit longer to actually implement between now and 6 years. But that would look at a tax rebate or a tax incentive essentially. We're working constantly on the permitting process. So once you get through land use, getting through permitting, trying to make that quicker. We have a new dashboard, which maybe I should share that with you, where you can track permitting times. How long has the project been with the city versus the developer on different types of projects? So we can see where the hangups are, what are our internal deadlines for putting projects around, and that's all public now, so.
What is the dashboard for?
That's like the permitting dashboard. Yeah. Anyway. Some people.
It's Flash, still being blessed.
It's called a PAD portal now. Yeah, and that's where you can look up an address and see all the permits where it is in the process as well. Maybe I should send it. A lot of
Looking
resources.
for it, I don't know, you can send it to me if you're on,
Okay.
if it shoots me in Teams or something.
Okay. But did you guys, I guess, before I do that, do you want to talk a little bit about continued use non-conforming? Or that has been the issue that you all wanted to maybe touch on? So that's essentially where we've had regulations in place forever. Someone builds something to those regulations, our regulations change. And so now you're non-conforming. So over the years, as we've updated the code, we've kind of created this thing called continued use. So you're not as penalized essentially because it was on us, right? We changed the code to make it a little bit more flexible. It's not super consistent across all the zones. So we're gonna look at all the zones and try to make it more consistent so that maintain more rights essentially to something that you built under a previous code. So that project, we're trying to wrap all these code things into this one package next year with this housing work, including a lot of changes at the state level. On the last legislative session, there's a lot of different changes to housing related code. So as an example, middle housing land divisions, have you guys heard of that? So if someone builds like 3 units on one lot, you can now divide it essentially. And all those little pieces that are divided don't have to meet any standards, so it's a quick, easy process. And previously, before this change in earlier this year, you know, it would go out to notice, right? There'd be public comment, you could appeal it, and it was kind of like, why? It's already gone through a process, and so the new law changed that that division no longer has public comment appeal except by the person that's applying. So I was trying to speed up that process as well, remove some potential kind of procedural barriers. So there's a lot of changes in the code that are coming out based on the state.
So you plan to roll all this stuff together.
I'm hoping
Housing
to.
and.
It's gonna be a lot. Bryce and I are gonna just kind of crank it up.
So as far as
Next
the
year.
continued use provision.
Yes, I'll be there.
So will there be meetings where will you go out, will it be outreach or will it be code? Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can certainly come back when we.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. So I would say, I don't know, so Salem Electric's a good example.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
in pretty much all of the West Salem renewal area, it's all mixed use at this point. And Salem Electric's, they want to build buildings around their storage areas, their yards. Well, any new construction triggers, mixed use, mixed use. So aside from going in and doing a comp plan zone change and say, we want to just keep doing and build, we're not going anywhere. I would say that's a pretty good one to meet with or talk about,
Okay.
because they have plans to, I think it's in everyone's interest to, their storage yard right now is just equipment out there, so I get it. I mean, on their side, protecting that, so it's not in the elements, but also from a visual standpoint. Building essentially instead of chain link fence and building a storage yard. So those are just one of those things where it's like, it's hard to think of. I mean, we went through the rounds, there's all years of outreach and discussion, but until you actually get to a point where it's like, we're at a point now where we build this, but then.
Yeah.
Doesn't meet the requirements of continued use, you know.
And we always learn as things are like actually implemented on the ground, or like, oh, you meant to do this, or we didn't, yeah.
So I don't know what that looks like as far as, because I know from my understanding of the code, if it's an existing building, it's damaged, you can rebuild it, you can build to a certain size, but you can't build like the whole lot. So I don't know what that looks like, but that would be something to
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that.
make the rounds, talk about. We can work with the particular people that have been directly involved. They can share their thoughts on the difficulties they've gone through, maybe.
Yeah.
Like. Sorry to bring that up as an example, but I know it's been a thing. Developments that you come across.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing that we've been able to do by 700 was basically take that warehouse, use the existing footprint and modify it. Because God forbid we approach planning a different idea. I'm just being blunt. I mean,
So it's next
this is a headache that has long since been resolved. Building code purposes, but planning the public works are the obstacle in Salem. And that needs to be addressed at a lot of levels. We got, I mean, you're showing them, you're putting a face to the fact that we've got 65% glazing on every building on street front. Well, that doesn't accommodate the practicality of building shear walls and structural elements into the base of the building to meet these objectives. We've set regulations that don't parallel the norm. And they become obstacles. That isn't a good thing. That's a negative. So that's a different issue in a sense, but it parallels this whole concept. What I'd like to see is that we just back off and revisit what a good regulation or what a bad regulation is. Or an over-regulated is a better term. You know, we should have objectives, we should have, you know, down in Medford, we had our review. Just so you didn't go too far off the the parallel of the community. But that's So in the planning realm, the one thing I'd like to advisory is take a look at the industrial footprint that's gonna be developed between Wallace and I'm not sure the definition of the road there, but you clearly see you've got residential to the west, we've got industrial threshold with huge footprints. And what is the goal and how do we enhance
So Wallace,
the ability?
is that what you're talking about?
Say that again.
Patterson and Wallace?
Yeah, I think it's actually upstream of Patterson and Hare, right? But maybe it is Patterson that comes through. But how do we, as a group here, kind of point that into a transitional, desirable development? Because it can't just go carte blanche. You know, right now the city's emphasis is everything is going to be 3 stories, 4 stories of housing over the top of retail. Well, that footprint is pretty well been pushed to the limits of Salem's appetite right now. And it isn't gonna get pushed into West Salem en masse. What is it that we are trying to achieve ultimately in that process that would not flush out and overburden, basically gentrify the housing to the west of Patterson?
That's where I think you guys could provide good feedback. So with the continued use piece coming up, they'll make the rounds, being prepared to speak to it, because I think the intent of having like that industrial area be mixed use is it's kind of trying to do the best of both worlds. Like while you're operating now, you have limited expansion. I mean, aside from like the unique case of like why to build a whole building where your storage is, a lot of this industrial area is already built. So if you had like a one-off or you have limited expansion capabilities if industrial is retired. If the workforce is shifted, I know transportation is hard for industrial users at that location. Intent then was to help be in a position to transition if the market. So it's that, how do you make that achievable? You know, is it too restrictive on the continued use side because there's still a desire for industrial employment uses? I think that's probably the case. I mean, I don't know how Baxter's is doing it. I don't want to talk about it in a public meeting, but it's one of those things where it's like, use them as long as possible until the market shifts and there's not some. I mean, nice thing about it is large lot, you'll have to acquire multiple lots, multiple owners. And demolish that, go through a land use process to merge the lots and 1 or 2 buildings. This is already configured for that. It's just a matter of time. It's hard to anticipate what that looks like.
I think during our Salem project, I was just looking, because I'm jumping right, and in that, when we rezoned that to mixed use, we did allow this like adaptive reuse kind of industrial zone to remain in that area. You remember that? Because we had this conversation about it might be industrial for a longer period of time than we think, even though there's some desire to transition to commercial, maybe services. And so if there are specific questions about that area, maybe give me a call, because it's a very specific thing we carved out just for that area of the whole code. So maybe, you know, I don't know who's answering one question and what the questions are, but I remember writing it specifically for this area. So,
Okay.
yeah. And maybe it needs to be expanded, maybe it's
Yeah.
not just in our area and.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of transitional pieces that just aren't being utilized very effectively because you can't really jump from X to Y
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah.
You're not gonna throw housing into
Right.
a tilt up warehouse. You know, how do we remedy Hannah's
Yeah.
issue, ATI, what is it, service masters renting or leasing in there now? What can we do to, as a group, to have, and we have theoretically soil issues that are remnant there that somebody's gonna have to deal with at some point to really explore
We can't.
redeveloping it.
Yeah, so we do have, that's the nice thing about the grants, and you guys have had. So there's been a lot of thought and anticipation of these transitions, so we have the existing grant of up to 300,000, but you've also. Done exception criteria so that. Up to 749, so we could almost contribute $1 million to help with cleanup. So we're in a position to do it, it's just a matter of. What else needs to be done to help either. Keep the manufacturers there if they want to stay there, or we're in a position to help them too. They need to have helped. Tree before Baxter's as far as expanding production lines, so it's just that. We're trying to do what we can. We just don't know when those shifts will.
The exception grant all around, so
So we're gonna. As soon as you get over 749,000, you start to trigger. Labor. Costs for it. So just keep some points, that's like a public works project, or city money is. Public money is. Incorporated in a project that. Costs. So we're trying to keep it.
did she just move on?
Yes.
So that's it.
Yeah.
So I know they were having slow issues with prices.
Well, they had lead in the building, and we did clean up that building to accommodate them. That was all sprinkled, yeah, they probably do have sort of.
Well, you know, the field they used to donate softball. That was on the backside of the building had to be vacated. Because there was contaminants at some level. And, you know. That's gonna be an hindrance to any proceed, let alone. I mean, service masters, sure are using that building well, but. I mean, there's floor slabs in there, they're 4 foot thick, it's very unique processing. And really isn't agile for any other utilization. And so, you know, I don't have solutions in mind, but I just. Speaking to the idea that there are big pieces of land in there that do not exist on the other side of the river. So we're ever going to have a footprint that addresses some of the, I see it as like groceries, Red Meyer, you know, whatever entity that becomes. We haven't been successful getting it into downtown. Is there a threshold for people actually will cross the bridge and go get some in West Salem to meet that need, because you now have a footprint to host it? It's just an idea.
I just, for whatever reason, I just thought about that. Just thinking about how it came. And I feel like they're expanding. Just expanding out South Salem, or they've been there.
Yeah, they're leaving downtown.
They love the street.
Oh, did go over that.
Along over Rockingham.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, I've been walking downtown out of solutions. Each time we proceed another replication of the same theme. But all of those, I don't know, got maybe 1,000 residents down there that we didn't have 5-10 years ago. That we'll have to get in the car to get anything. You know, from that standpoint, because they're just leaving most of downtown. You know, it just seems like you gotta get over this threshold. Of providing that service in order to actually stimulus more demand for concentrated housing. And yet, it's like I say, the same threshold, I'd hate to see that remaining section gentrified and pushed out. If you're really trying to save housing that's affordable. And quickly will happen, it happens in every large urban area. So I don't know what we can do, I'm just voicing a thought.
About no comments. I'm just kidding. Now there's a thought.
Just
Something.
let's do what you want.
Well, the health side sounds like, but if you come, you know. We'll be talking, we'll bring you back so we can do a conversation.
I'll
We'll
have to
ask,
see some of the tree variances and stuff update, cause I know,
Yeah,
my understanding is there's a lot of like. Buildable land within, but because of, you can't, as soon as the developer looks at it, it just doesn't pencil, it seems like.
yeah, a lot of it.
it's that balance of where when the urban infill and the UGB.
Yeah.
So there should be, yeah.
Like, if you don't want us to expand out,
Yeah.
you gotta make some changes inside so we can do this.
I will, just from personal experience, you don't need a structural engineer to sign off on a tree. Just weighing in. A lot of needless, but the arbor should.
Somebody design daily, well, not the tree side, structural.
Well, you get it, right?
Yeah.
So an arborist says this tree needs to be vacated if it's approaching or damaging. And they require, city of Salem requires an SE to come in and validate that.
One of our proposals, I think, is to allow encroachment at a certain percentage without an arbor.
That would be smart.
Maybe a real quick update on a different topic. We were talking about culverts and things, and it triggered my memory that Public Works is actually leading a project to inventory all streams and creeks and the repairing corridors. And then planning is gonna take on the second phase is how do you protect those corridors? So as we kind of move into that phase, we will start doing public outreach. There is an advisory committee that hasn't met yet. It's gonna hopefully meet by the end of the year to understand the inventory, like where are all the creeks and streams and repair corridors and adjacent wetlands, et cetera. What does that mean? And then how do we transition it? So we're trying to balance all the things, right? Housing, development, but also streams and creeks and trees and so a lot. Yeah.
Alright, what do you think from? So. Something.
Next, general meeting to my. Is September 25th, it's typically the fourth Thursday of each month over at Ross. And our guest speaker is Eva Pignoti. She's Chief Program Officer with the Willamette Valley Community Action Committee. So she'll be speaking on behalf of what is going on in their neck of the woods. Yeah, should be good. That is all.
So let me see. Some paper association. September 4th, so tomorrow. At Ross, and. So 6 to 10. They have a lot on the agenda, but just. Follow that. Facebook. Maybe tomorrow. Once.
That's regular with association.
Yeah, what's the name? So,
Every other month,
sure we can bring it.
and they switched it up, they called it back up. So.
As far as next agenda topics, we talked about aligning the West Salem grant program to bid. There's some things in North Gateway and downtown that might be a good fit for West Salem. West Salem's been probably it's been unique because a lot of the existing buildings that we have, they're not stored, multi-story, they're just single story. And the drive, the program was there was a desire from the advisory board of the agency to see return on investment. So by increasing the square footage, doing bigger investments in equipment, those are tax accessible, so it's essentially a return. So it's not just that giving money away, it's getting something back. Which has been good, but also kind of slow to get things out, so we don't have quite the number of grants going out that other areas do. So there's some things to open it up a little bit more, so I'm gonna pull some of those things together, we'll talk about it. So I won't be bringing something actionable, like as far as a recommendation. At the next meeting, I just want to get your thoughts, so. It'll be more of a workshop style. I'll have some suggestions if you don't mind. Thinking about it, and our other programs, I can send links around so you get an idea. How to hear your thoughts on.
Awesome. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good job. And I really gave you the.
Are we on
thing that
fire?
I have is person. Just kind of talked about.